Dashia D.
It is Jay Stan.
And welcome back to In Retrospect Podcast. We look beyond the surface to find understanding.
Bring you laughs, knowledge, and culture.
So sit back, relax, and join the combo.
Today we're joined by an esteemed guest. He's been here before, once more. His name is Brian, and he has a couple endeavors he'd like to let everybody know about, some projects and stuff that we'd like you guys to look into. I'm gonna pass it to Brian so he can tell y'all a little bit about some of the things that he'd like you to subscribe to and some of the things that he has going on.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brian Morton, and formerly known as Be the Motivator, motivational speaker, teacher, DJ, skate enthusiast, and more recently, a YouTube vlogger. So be sure to check out my channel. I have Motivation Station Charge. That is Motivation Station Charge. I cover all things mentioned. The biggest piece of that being motivation and trying to enrich our communities through motivation. So you can also follow me on Instagram at be the motivator _inspires, or my business page at motivation station _inspires.
It's a good time when you show up. We know it. Hey, what we're gonna get into today though is the topic of, everybody wants to be rich. Everybody thinks they know money. Everybody thinks they know what success looks like, but do they really? So the question I'm gonna pose to everybody is, let's define success. Let's get to it.
So when I think of success, I have a few points that I've written down. First and foremost, success being a state of mind. Success is subjective, right? And then I have my definition of success, which to me, success is more so noticed when I look around and I can say I'm more successful in more of my endeavors and facets of life than not. So what I mean by that is I have different things that make me happy and content in life.
I agree. It's all, subjective and what success looks like, but I completely agree with everything that you said as far as when it comes to success, everybody looks at it as, well, most people look at it as how much money you got. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, once you get that money, it's like, then what? What defines you after you get the money? To me, for success, it's just like, how many lives can you touch and change? It's like, how many minds can you get working? Like the wheels start to turn with these minds that you touch. Because, some people will be stuck in a rut until you give them that little light or that inspiration, something that may get their mind going to make them start moving in the right direction. A lot of people don't realize it. A small conversation could turn into a $1 billion idea, literally, nowadays. But see, we're so caught up in, the things that we see, the glitz and the glamour, and everybody starts to, lose sight of the human aspect of everything when it comes to success.
For speaking personally, I feel like success for me will be when I'm at peace and I'm not chasing the next thing. Okay. I think I tend to have a habit of like, well, life is okay. I'm content, but what's next? What do I need to work on now? And I feel like once I'm able to free myself of that mindset, I will be successful, because then I will know that I'm grateful for what's happening in my life. And kind of like what you said, Brian, I'm satisfied with the different facets of my life, whether that's professionally or personally. So
that's nice. And so my question to you, Dashia, is, do you believe it's possible to have a healthy mindset, like to not throw it away? And I know you probably didn't mean that literally, but I feel like, I'll put it this way. I'm gonna make my statement. I'm not gonna make my question a statement. I'm gonna just say,
that's right, big dog. Do what you do.
I feel like that thing that it makes you want to go further, I don't think it necessarily needs to be thrown away, or maybe it just needs to be assessed, because I feel like you could possibly be successful and still be ready to move and do something else. But there is a healthy balance that has to happen, because you have to, I always say, content, not complacent, right? Always content, not complacent. That's one of my life notes, right? You have to be able to say, hey, I want to move further and I want to grow as we are supposed to, right? Yeah. But I'm also very happy with where I am right now.
To answer your question, the reason why I want to move beyond that mindset is because I feel like nothing will ever be good enough. Because I could be making the most money, have the biggest house, the nicest cars, but if I'm continuing to chase what's next, I'll never be happy.
The finest spouse. I'm sorry to throw that in, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, but no.
But that's not to say that the things I have going on can't grow. They definitely can, but I don't want to start chasing just completely new things, if that makes sense.
It's mindset. It's all mindset, and it's appreciation. It's perspective, right?
Yeah.
And that's important too, and that speaks to personal joy. When you think of wealth, do you think of health? Is wealth in your mind? When you think of wealth, when you think of anybody that's rich, is the first thing that comes to your mind, or is the first 5 things that come to your mind healthy?
No.
Most people know.
No, I hear wealth, I think money, cars, clothes.
Exactly. And so what we have is I'm noticing, I don't know if y'all are noticing it, but it seems like it's a trade-off. If you have wealth, you probably don't have health where it matters. You might be physically fit, but I don't see a whole lot I know people that are 18 years old, rappers. I don't even listen to these guys, but they're 18 years old. They are from the bottom. They just told you about how they didn't have a mama, didn't have a daddy. That I saw somebody get shot when I was 3, all kind of stuff, right?
We're calling failed.
And then the first thing they rap about is how depressed they are. And I'm looking like, well, you just signed a deal, you got money, and so the money didn't help it, huh? Because now in the first album you write is just straight up depression. You know, it's just straight depressed.
Yeah.
And so that money isn't the access to success. It's not if health is on your radar, and that's what's more important to me. My outlook is the most important. How I feel every day, job satisfaction, right? Quality of life. Those are the things that make true success, and the money does tend to help from time to time.
Yeah, I agree. Money makes you comfortable. It doesn't make you happy.
At all, no.
Yeah.
What Drake said, I'm happier when I can buy what I want.
You still have stress, but it's not stress about bills.
It's a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
Like, what are 2 good things do you believe someone needs to cut from their life right now so that they can no longer be distracted from pursuing their goals of being awesome? And when we mean awesome, we mean to getting where you need to be as an individual.
So 2 goals or 2 things that need to be cut out of a person's life. Off the top of the head, I've been big on accountability lately. Intentions and accountability. And I'm noticing far too many people are surrounding themselves with people that will not hold them accountable. And I'm not putting the onus on those people that don't hold them accountable. One thing, it's a 2-sided thing. It could be you need to remove people that don't want to hold you accountable, that don't care enough to hold you accountable. Because true love is like my little brother, right? I love him dearly. I always talk about him. I love Brandon so much that I would tell him when he's doing something wrong. But then we get with some friends and some people we surround ourselves with that love us so much that they won't tell us. That's unhealthy, because accountability is what is going to make you go ascend, right? That's one thing. You either need to remove that, or for my first one, you need to remove whatever the thing is that makes it to where you don't bring people around you that hold you accountable. Because somebody might hold you accountable. I might be out here and I'm like doing something, and I just told y'all I want to do this. I want to start this business, and Dashia is my friend, and Dashia come and say, "Hey Brian, you slacking. You need to do this." And I'd be like, "Man, she a hater. I ain't talking to her no more." Dashia always, and I'm on Instagram like, I'm tired of people hating on me all the time, and it's like, you need to remove whatever that is. What that is, you need to remove it. That needs to go. That's the first one for me.
You have to remove folks that are in your life, and more than likely it could be family, but most of the time it tends to be the friends that you so-called believe are your friends that are around you, but they're not, like Brian just said, holding you accountable. Now you got folks telling you got yes men around you. You got nobody telling you, no, that ain't it. Cut that out. You stepping outside doing something stupid that could probably jeopardize you for the rest of your life. You got nobody telling, hey man, relax. Step back, think about it. You got folks like, yeah, man, let's do it. You only live one time, might as well. Like, what?
That's what they be saying to you, Justin?
Yeah, hey man, look, man, I got a little brother, and when you said that, I knew exactly what you meant. I'm like, listen, man, these other folks might tell you, oh man, it's great. It's amazing. I'm like, listen, man, let me talk to you real quick. Come over here real quick.
This question is kind of hard though, because we're answering this question as if all people are self-aware. And that's just not the case.
Right.
Because when you've been used to a certain pattern that's what you're used to. You don't know any different. So if you have a circle of yes men, then you just think you the shit. And that's just what it is. No one can tell you any different. So before you can remove anybody, you need to take a step back and evaluate the people you have around you and how is this turning out for you as far as what you want to do, whether that's career-wise, in love, whatever that looks like. Like how are the two adding up? Is this helping or is this hurting?
Right.
So
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And the next thing I would say though is like it's a good thing that people believe is good in their minds that they need to drop is that sense of, now everybody's situation is different. Now I'm going to speak from like the younger person's perspective of always wanting to be secure with everything that's going on. Unfortunately, in my eyes, it's my opinion. Everybody else might think differently. But when you're young, you got to take those chances because in my opinion, you got time to correct yourself. You got time to try to, fix what, certain mistakes you might make. If you out here thinking, I'm going to play it safe, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And then to touch base and bring it all the way home with our wealth discussion, for instance, if you're young and you're not investing and you telling yourself, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to just hold on to my money forever and I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to put it nowhere. I'm not going to do anything with it because I just don't know. I just like my security in my mind and I know I'm good. That's all I need to know. And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with it. But that way of thinking can be detrimental to you down the road, in my eyes, before you start to gain more responsibilities. Because then once you gain more responsibilities, the idea of, oh man, I got to get this money. I got to do this. I got to do that. You got responsibilities now. So it's going to be that much harder for you to get what you want because you're not the first person that you got to look out for now.
The other thing is anything that isn't propelling you forward should be treated as a threat. Right? If it's not fulfilling, there's no time to wait.
It just sounded so aggressive.
It sounded aggressive.
It's a threat. It is a threat. Like it has to be aggressive. You got to be militant in this thing because if I want to lose weight and I have a person that doesn't necessarily make me gain weight, but they also don't really make sure I am doing what I'm supposed to do to lose weight, that's a threat to my goal of losing weight. Yeah, I'm maintaining, but maintaining ain't the goal. Losing is the goal. So you helping me maintain ain't what I want. So I treat it as a threat. I don't treat you as a threat, but I treat the action as a threat and I adapt and I react. I move on it. I say, look, I can't spend 70% of my time with this person that doesn't care whether I gain or lose, but I can spend about 20% when I can afford to spend it. And that's all it is.
So, moving forward, like what relationships do you guys believe are the most important when it comes to one wanting to be successful and, take their ideas and everything to the next level?
Having a relationship with God is of the utmost importance. Because if you don't have perspective, and for me, that comes from God, right? If you don't have joy, if you don't have peace, then you could be experiencing success and not even necessarily know it, right? You could be experiencing things that you could be looking at something that you prayed for 5 years ago, and you could be looking it dead in the face and having it and still looking at it like it's not as important or it's not good because you kind of lost that feeling of what it was like when you didn't have that thing. And so, like I said, I pull from God to keep me grounded in that sense.
I think it's important to have mentors, especially mentors who are if we're speaking career-wise, who are doing things or in a field that you're interested in. Because you ask questions. People like to talk about themselves. How did you get to where you are? What schools did you go to? What classes did you take? Did you move to a particular city? And also networking once you get into a job. You may meet someone that is connected to something that you actually want to do. That's not saying you can just drop the job that you're currently at, but you might keep it as a mental note, like, okay, this person has a friend that works here at a government facility. This is where I want to go. Let me go do that a year from now, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I feel like also too, though, we also have a problem when it comes to like reaching out to folks for mentorship. That is a huge problem. And it's one of those things where folks fall into this whole mindset of, I can figure it out. I know what I'm doing. And it's like, do you really? You're trying to do something that you've never done before and nobody around you knows how to do it. Do you really know what you're doing? And why is that?
Do you think some of that is because I don't want to say it's just Black people,
Oh,
but
but
I think sometimes we have this habit of wanting to be the only to do something or to succeed at something. So we don't want to give tips on how to get there. I don't know where that mentality comes from. That's not to say that Black people don't look out for Black people, because we definitely do. But there's that other sector of us who want to be the one and only succeeding at a specific thing. So we're like, figure it out. I had to figure it out.
Dashia, let's keep it a whole band on this podcast right now. You got a lot of Black folks in these supervisor positions, management positions. And as soon as they see somebody that is applying themselves and showing, something that, oh man, they might be able to move on up, will come from the mindset of, and it's not just Black folks in particular when I'm giving this example, but they'll see them and they'll be like, oh, nah, you ain't, you know what I'm saying? You will stay right there. And please believe, if something were to happen, I'm not coming to bat for you. That is an issue that goes on in the workforce. Now, I'm speaking from my experience, more than none. It usually is the people of the same skin color of myself that are not defending other folks of the same skin color of myself that will not come to bat for you. And it is wild to me, because I'm just sitting here like, oh, I thought we was, supposed to be together. But it's not like that. It will not, from what I've seen in the workforce. Now, somebody can correct me, but when I've been in the workforce, it's just one of those things. Like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously? You ain't gonna say nothing?
Yeah, I experienced that same thing too. You're not alone in that. Overall, I would say that, this might sound bad, but I've received much more handouts in networking opportunities from people from other races than my own race.
Yep.
And that's just the 100% truth about it.
Yep.
It is what it is. I do my best to try to reach out to people and help people as much as I can. But as far as when I go and I interact with people, so a lot of people have gifts and they're not willing to actually
share.
Yeah, they're not willing to share. They're not willing to let you, give you access to their gifts. And it happens so much in our community that I just kind of don't even think about it no more. I'm so used to it. So I don't expect for me when I walk up to somebody and because I walk up to people, I don't just, I like love to talk to people and get to know people. And worst thing you can do is just not link with me. And that's fine. Right. But I'm walking up and I remember that initial conversation. And I could just say that a lot of times when it's a Black person, it's like we almost have to warm up to each other and it's just a lot. It's kind of productive. So
yeah, I will say too that, some people do, like, as far as like socially, some people have a thing where like, oh, I got to get to know this person before I can feel comfortable around them in order for me to tell them what I have going on or what I want to do. And, I feel like, unfortunately, in order for you to get to where you want to be, you got to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. So that's just one of those things you got to try to snap out of and try to break into. It's easier said than done. I know some people, it's hard.
I think you're just trying to figure out if they're skin folk or kin folk. That's really simple terms, what you try to figure out.
Yeah.
You with us or you not? And if you not, okay, I'll keep my distance from you.
Yeah.
But, that's just me at least.
And I also would say fall back on the if you won't know, you just have to ask. That's the main thing. Like, don't sit there and be thinking like, dang, I should have did that. Just ask. And if it's the worst thing that can happen is say no, then what? Just move along.
Very true. Prime example of that was us having on that pastor, Minister Sean. Neither of us knew her. I found her on TikTok. Her and her wife get millions of views on TikTok. I was like, this is a shot in the dark, but I want to have this conversation. I respect her. The worst that she can say is no. Yeah. Clearly she didn't, and she came on. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. And to that point, I'll say that I feel as though your inner circle is important, and your inner circle is not necessarily, it's not the same for everybody. So my inner circle happens to be my immediate family. And then I have a few people that are not, like I said, I consider Justin a part of my inner circle. And we met simply through the fraternity. That inner circle is important. And for you to be able to recognize exactly who is in it and who loves you enough, or making sure your inner circle is filled with love.
Right.
Like I said, if people aren't always blessed to have a mother and a father, right? So that might not be your inner circle, but I know people that have great relationships with their uncles. I know people that have great relationships with I'm like, man, that's cool. You like really close to your cousins. I don't really talk to my cousins that often at all. right? I moved to Japan in 2000. And when I moved to Japan in the year 2000, my family dynamic changed as far as my people that lived in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And why do you think that, like, over time, you got family members or friends will be like, oh, you changed. You changed. You acting different now. You think you know it all. Especially, why do people do that? Do you think especially when it comes to money? Because everybody feels like they know money, for instance. Everybody thinks they know wealth. Why is the first thing that you hear out of somebody's mouth, oh, you changed, when you're trying to explain stuff to them about the things you've been through, the things you've seen? Why is that like something that comes out of people's mouths?
I think that, that's another one where there's many different variables. It's case by case. You could be talking to a person that said you changed and they're really trying to manipulate and get whatever they want at that time. And they might be trying to tap on those heartstrings that are going to make you say, all right, I got you. And they say thank you and go on their way. And then they come back later and ask the same thing. That might be a variable. Or they might feel like you really did change, right? They might, a lot of times, it's a lot of, projecting and things like that. So it's just so many different variables that go into it that I couldn't really just give one answer for that question.
I feel like people who say that, two things. I feel like people who say that are afraid that you changing means that they will no longer have the same access to you. That's first and foremost. And the second is people who say that, typically they don't change. They stay stagnant. They stay the same person.
Very true.
And so they feel, I don't know, they feel left out. Maybe they feel like, again, they can't have that same type of relationship with you because you're evolving and they are not.
So you would say that they feel that they're inferior, is what you're saying? Or
maybe, but that's because they made themselves feel that way, not because you did anything to them.
Yeah, but I feel as if though sometimes when people feel that way, they blame you,
that's
not
fine.
Themselves. You said that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's their issue. What you think about me is not my business. Okay. That's your business.
Right. I agree. And it tends to happen more than not in most things when it comes to moving forward. I also noticed that, we talked about earlier, we touched on it when we talk about health is wealth. Like, why do people only categorize wealth with money and not wealth with, health as well?
What I will say is that it's easier to track money. To me, it's not as easy to track health. Somebody's healthy. Somebody can appear healthy and not be healthy. So you don't know what health looks like because you will hear about somebody and think that they are the epitome of health. And then you hear a news article and you're like, man, I didn't know they were all bad like that.
That's how we've been socialized. That's why we're in school. They created school so we would know what it's like to be in the place for several hours. So we can go ahead to a factory and work.
Right, he's a perfect employee. Yeah, this is like scientifically, not scientifically, but historically, this is documented to be employees.
So they've never made it a point to check in with yourself, not only your physical health, but your mental health.
Right,
because you can be healthy physically, but mentally you are shot.
We see that. We see that a lot.
Yeah, especially when it comes to us. I think that we have normalized working ourselves until we really can't do it anymore. It should not be normal for somebody in their 60s to be working as hard as they did straight out of high school. That's not normal.
It's not, but life come at you fast now. Like everybody, everybody's situation is different, but like if you ever get the chance to, and if somebody is willing to share their story. There was a guy at one of my last job I used to work with. He was up in age. I was like, dang, man, like working hard every day. And then, I had a conversation with him. And his main thing was, he was like, yeah, man, I got to work. I've been divorced 2 or 3 times. My money's been gone from all these marriages, this, that, and the third, everything didn't work out. Now, granted, I will say this, you never know the situation behind everything that took place in these marriages. But however, the choices that you make will shape your life.
Yeah, but what is the retirement age in comparison to the average age of death? I feel like it's about 10 years that you got.
Probably less than that.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So regardless of if you've been married, divorced, kids, not, you only have about a decade or less of actual life to just live without the burden of a job. Does that sound right?
Well, and that's the thing. That's my thing. So you said that sound right, but what are we basing whether that sounds right? What are we basing it off of?
We're going back to the numbers
because you got to
like
understand where we came from to know where we're going. If naturally as humans we came from literally, like, we have so much science and we're in the first world country, so a lot of times our conversations are first world-esque, if that's a word. It's but the world is not first world. It, even if it is, it's always going to have a foundation of like third worldish, which is like out in the wilderness. The main thing is getting, security. We have so much security. We have such a great military that we start being like, is retirement, is that okay? And it's like, I think 200, 300 years ago, people might have been saying like, y'all retire? like what is retirement? Yeah. Right? So I just want to point notice on that. Like, it's really up to us. It's up to you. Whether if you retire for 5 years and you died, or you retired at the age of 30 and you live, it's really like, it can fluctuate.
Right. But the average person, we can look at stats, but I don't think that the average person will be able to retire in their 30s. So more than likely, right. So more than likely you won't retire until later on. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be working as hard as I am right now.
I won't
at 60 plus. Like, that is crazy.
But it's also one of these things too, when we start talking about the numbers, like you said earlier, somebody, up in age, like, oh, I got $200,000, I can retire. Can you?
You better make that money work.
Is your house paid off? Is your car paid off?
Because it's like, it gets to the point where it's like, people get to this age that I talked to a lot of older folks before, and I hear the same thing. It's a trend depending on if somebody did it the right way, and that set them up so they don't have to work at this right age of you said 72. Well, we're just gonna say 72 for the conversation. So you working at
60s, I think, like 65, 67.
Oh no, I'm talking about the person that probably still be working at the age of 72.
Oh,
yeah,
my dad just retired before 60. Before he turned 60, my dad retired. I think it was like 57, 58.
Right. And what I was getting at was like, when you are trying to retire, and when I say retire, you're not trying to go nobody's job. You ain't trying to do this, that, and the third to make ends meet. You got your fixed income coming in on a month-to-month basis for however long. Now, ideally, like they should say, most people will try to, when they retire, they're thinking, oh, I don't have to work for at least, let's say, put a number on it, 10 to 15 years, right? And then you got to account for the stuff that you possibly are maintaining that you got to pay in bills. Mm-hmm. That $200K, that can disappear like that because you don't got nothing coming in.
It's gone.
So it's just like, that's when a lot of people, and I hear a lot of people say this, I got all this money, but it ain't enough.
It's 67.
Right. So it's 67 for what?
Retirement age in the US.
So 67, around 67 is the retirement age. So when you look at it like that, it's like, dang, 67. And then the life expectancy, depending on your race, male or female, is not, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us, who gonna live to be 100? Not most of us. To be real about it. So then it's just like, dang, I'm gonna work till I'm about 67. That's the average American now. Mm-hmm. When I say average, I mean somebody that so-called did it the American way.
Yeah. So with the averages are interesting though, because the average, I want to say, of a American household for the longest, like as far as money was concerned, was like in the 40s. And that average though is interesting because I just happen to have a family that nobody really ever made that little. Like, I mean, well, back in the day, back in the 90s, but it's like 40,000. That's the average. Like, it's a lot of people, 300 and something million people to make up that average. So there's a lot of different variables that go into that. And I will say that systemically, education is set up. They should made a good point. Education is not set up for you to learn the skills to be healthy and wealthy. It's set up for, as y'all said, historically, to get you ready for the work, right? And you have to make room for that. I know it sounds bad, and we can be like, oh, well, that's not right. But it's like, well, what's wrong? Because at the end of the day, it's like I said, you can say what you want about America, but like if you go to other countries, you'll see a lot of things that you can really complain about too. It's like you can go anywhere. I'm not saying America's perfect, but our system is better than a lot of places that I've been and I've seen, right? And
Right.
so, and also what you got to understand about this school too is that it was also set up as like a daycare. It's like to where if we didn't have kids in school, how would the parents work to keep our society rolling, to keep America rolling? How in the world would we be able to do what we do to keep everyday life going if the kids didn't have somewhere to go?
Right.
And that kind of ties into why, in my opinion, this is not fact, but why I feel like public school teachers get paid so little, because some people look at them as, yeah, you got to but you a babysitter, because I need somebody to watch the lawyer's kid. I need somebody to watch the police officer's kid. He has, so I need somebody to watch this person's kid that works at Walmart, because they have to service people that, like, you know what I'm saying? And that's the sick side of it. But what we have to do as a people is know that and be intentional about our planning and what we're going to do moving forward, knowing that information, knowing that that's how it's set up. So we raising those kids to be like, look, when y'all go to school, y'all have to maximize on this, because you're not going to school because they want you to be successful and rich. Right?
Yes.
So,
yeah. No, I wish I could actually read it, but when I searched it up real quick, it says that the average life expectancy for Black men in the US is 69 and 76 for Black women.
Wow.
So that's crazy. Because if you retire, if you retire at 67 and you kick the bucket at 2 years later.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, it's extremely unfortunate. I didn't know I could say.
One thing I do want to add as a side note, I believe now that we are having this conversation about what's right, what's wrong, I would like to compare the US to other well-developed countries and not the developing countries. So places like the UK and Canada, just to see like, what is the difference overall, health-wise, mental health, and working? And are there things that the US could improve on? Because the way that things are set up, I feel like they could be reimagined.
That's why I do remember a study where it said that Americans are one of the most the most burnt out folks when it comes to like in the working space. Because I do know, like you touched on it, overseas, folks, when they do get burnt, they have days where they can just take off strictly because they feel like they're getting burnt out. I wish I would call somebody that I'm working for and tell them, yeah, nah.
Or even siesta, like having a time during the day where everyone takes a break and takes a nap a day will be wonderful. Yes, like having a nap a day for every professional, I feel like would do wonders for productivity. But hey, I don't know.
That's true. And what I'll say to that is like, so of course, I've lived in Japan and Korea for for longer of a time than I actually lived in the States. And the moral fabric that has been tied to a lot of countries that from the very beginning are like, is so different sometimes. So some countries are really high on morals, more so than America is. And America, money kind of jumps over morals often. And with that, the bad part about that is, the good part is because the money rules everything. You have a really strong military and you have a certain level of security to where people can say what they want to say, but America is not a person to be trifled with. Like America is in all the countries. We are everywhere. So, and people will be like, why are you in that country? And it's like, I know I have military intelligence friends that in MI, and I know why they're in that. Okay, so, but at the same time, with that, you give away the moral fabric and you give away that moral foundation that says in a country, we care about you, right? That's just like going to Korea and there's no guns in Korea. The police have guns. You don't really own guns in Korea. Why? Because you can actually you don't have to own guns in Korea because that's how Korea was built. It was built like that. So it sounds good to be like, man, in America, you need to just get rid of guns so we can be like Korea. Do that if you want to.
Hey, good luck trying to get
it'll be scary because our setup was different. We had the choice, or we didn't have a choice. We wasn't even in the picture. But when the choices were being made, people chose guns over not guns. And that to take it back now, it will be, you just have to figure out how to move around, how to fix it without fixing it. You can't just be like, oh, do away with it. Okay, that's a bad move, right? So the complex part is trying to figure out how to make America better without having the historical, setup that other countries have, and America still being a fairly younger country.
I had a question though for everyone, was that as teachers or people that have worked with kids, I'll say it like this. People that have worked with kids, because all of us have worked with kids in some capacity throughout our adult life. So when we talk about wealth, and when it comes to working with kids, please believe, like you hit on it earlier, money is not one of the things in most jobs when people are dealing with kids that is top priority. It is something that you need, but what is something that drives folks, and I'm gonna answer it as well, that drives folks to continue to show up to work with these kids? When we talk about, oh, okay, health is wealth and being wealthy is cash, money, this, that, and the third. But what are, let's try to come from the perspective of what's making folks tick or show up to work every day when they know that they're not going, possibly be able to achieve money down the line that they want.
Well, Justin, what do you think?
What I think is this. I just feel like no matter how much money you could possibly get, it always comes down to how you manage your money from that standpoint, as well as when you're working with kids. I feel like it's a different kind of wealth as far as, like I stated earlier, when I defined success, was that, that next mind that you could possibly scope could possibly turn into, next $1 billion idea. And the wealth that could possibly, from the perspective I think of wealth, is when we think of like knowledge. Knowledge is wealth, in my opinion, and passing that knowledge that you do have on to the kids that you may have come into contact with, and not just kids, but kids for this scenario, but other people can really just, shape the world possibly. It sounds cliche, but it's a real thing, I think.
I think that's a sweet answer.
It's diplomatic, I know.
It's a sweet answer, but to be honest, well, I'm currently working in the school district in Atlanta, and there has been a high turnover of principals, teachers, there's one of the schools I have now that have had 5 different principals since the pandemic has started, because people are burnt out and the payout for it is not worth it. They enjoy youth, they enjoy mentoring, they enjoy teaching, but it's like, if your cup is empty, you have nothing to pour into other people with. Mm-hmm. That is why I took a step back from doing therapy with children, because I am in my 20s, life is happening. And if I am super anxious and depressed, I can't give to you, or at least I don't feel like I can. So me knowing myself, I was like, okay, I want to work with kids, but I cannot be a therapist anymore, because this is not healthy for me, and it's not going to be healthy for them. So I took a step back, and then now I'm doing school social work. So I get what you're saying, but I feel like if it is draining you, and you can remember your why and your purpose, but if it is draining you and you are living paycheck to paycheck and you are unhappy, there is no way that you're leaving your problems at the door to work with those kids. And I feel like that's going to end up hurting them more than helping them. But that's just me.
Absolutely. So I am very passionate about this. I actually tried to figure out a way to do action research for my doctorate degree for teacher burnout, but there was no lane for it because I chose the wrong degree at the end of the day. That's what it boiled down to. I chose the degree that deals with actual student performance in school things as opposed to education and whatever. But teacher burnout is a big deal, all right? And what I will say is, to answer Justin's question, the people that do stay because teachers are some of the most selfless people in the world. And I'm gonna talk about teachers, because teachers deserve to be treated way better than they are treated. And one thing that I am passionate about is the fact that every lawyer and doctor and successful person in the world has had a teacher, yet teachers make such a small percentage of what they make. I went to the government because the government is better. But what I've learned in the government is that sometimes because you get paid better, they think that they can sometimes can push you to do a whole lot more. And it's like, no, this is still basic compared to what our peers are getting paid. So let me get this right. I'm at a master's plus 30 degree, right? And let's say I'm a public school. If I look at Charleston County's pay scale, it is disgusting. To be a master's plus 30.
Listen.
If I have people asking me all the time, can you come back to Charleston? You could be an assistant principal. Can you come back to this or Richland? Can you come back to Columbia? Can you come here? And I'm like, do y'all know that I would drop money to be an assistant principal? That's ridiculous, right? But what's ridiculous is the mindset behind it that a lawyer, I know I have a lawyer friend that's in DC right now that makes close to $200,000 a year. I'm not saying that as a teacher, if I did the same amount of time that she did, that I should make the same amount of money, but I should at least be not like making 20% or 30% of her money. Like she had to go through a me to get to where she is. That should count for something, right? So at the end of the day, no matter how selfless teachers are, you have real life things you have to deal with, which is what Deja is talking about. You have real life issues and real life things that happen. And the fact that I had to consider getting a roommate when I first got out of college to be a teacher is sad. Like, why should I be looking for a roommate? Because I'm looking like my first paycheck went straight to rent alone. Had to ask my parents, like, hey.
And it's not just teachers. I feel like it's all jobs in service. Well, all jobs in service. Police officers get paid dirt.
Yeah, for real.
You ain't lying. I think about it.
Social workers, police officers, teachers, anything where you are serving other people aside from doctors.
Yeah.
They don't care.
And why y'all think it hasn't changed over all the years? You know, everybody's, you know, if you notice, like all the pay scale for all these different jobs have increased over the years. Why is, you know, the people that you're mentioning have stayed the same? Why is that?
Because
you see, we'll see that all this money is getting poured into it. Where's it going? Because
people will manipulate you and people will do what you allow them to do. So they tap into the fact that teachers, the first thing teachers think about when you talk about a walkout, or you talk about doing something that most people would do if they got treated like that after having a degree in something, being a professional. The first thing to think about is, oh, my kids, so-and-so can't afford to miss these days. So-and-so needs this, so-and-so needs that. And the teacher, it takes a certain level of, I don't know if selfish is the right word, but it takes a certain level of something for you to be like, man, them kids gonna have to just not go to school because they're gonna treat us right. Who is really doing that out loud? Who is really saying that in troves? Like, it was a walkout in South Carolina just so they could change it a few years ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago.
I remember that.
And the person's response, whoever, I'm not really big into politics like that, but the person, whoever was over it at the time, was like, they have a duty, a sworn duty, and they should, like, he was talking like kind of spicy on it. Like, you would think that he'd be like, yeah, y'all work hard and we're gonna try to figure this out. Dude was like, man, I need to get back to work. Like, that's what y'all signed up for.
He did.
And it's like, we signed up for it because we have a job, we have a degree that goes directly to a job. It's a pipeline. We can't afford to be like, yeah, I got this education degree, I'm about to go do this. Once you get an education degree, and mind you, there's some people that wouldn't get it if they knew the reality when they were in college. I can honestly say that I would have did the same thing because I already had parents in education. I knew my route where I was going. But a lot of people are looking like, man, please, I wouldn't have did this. I would have went and did something else for this.
Right.
Maybe, what's the word? It's entitlement. Because they feel like, well, my kid has to go to school. Well, y'all have to police the area to keep us safe. Well, y'all have to give us resources because you're a social worker. It's entitlement. Yeah. So if you gotta do it anyway, why are we giving y'all, I don't know, 6 figures to do that? Yeah. Whatever the number would be, I don't know.
I just feel like at least it should reflect the cost of living.
Absolutely.
It don't even reflect the cost of living. That's what be blowing me though.
Was it true that I was looking on one website? Dang, I wish I had it pulled up. But I was looking at South Carolina and Georgia, and it was saying for one adult, no kids, they need to be making at least like $37 an hour for minimum wage. And the minimum wage is $7.25. It was that same way for South Carolina and Georgia. Now that's ridiculous.
That's sick.
And you know, people are just taking it. Just taking it. Because at the end of the day, too, it's crazy. But just like you hit on it earlier, and we talked about it, like, folks are not going to be saying that stuff out loud because they know that I got to get this money by any means necessary in order for me to survive or help my family survive.
Okay. Let us know below anything that you thought about this conversation. I feel like we talked about wealth. We talked about parenting a little bit. What does success look like to you? Would it make a difference based on your household, whether or not, or what type of success you'll get? Let us know. I have been Dashia D.
And I've been Jay Stain.
Join us every Friday at noon.
And always remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
All right.